Hi there, welcome. My name is Sarah Gura, and I'm a master's level licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois and a licensed mental health counselor here in Florida. My practice is the self-care path, and I specialize in treating first responders. I'd love to invite everyone to take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, pull your shoulders down and away from your ears. Take a moment to align your spine and to shift your weight so that you feel as comfortable as possible. Noticing and just being aware of your body and your somatic experience is called interoception. And to be more in tune or in alignment with yourself is so important. And I want to thank you for being here, but I also know that this is more productivity in your day. And I do know that as a counselor for high functioning professionals, we sometimes go 100 miles per hour. So I ask you to notice your breath and your body before each class to just sort of do a little check in and check up on yourself. So without further delay, we're going to talk more about peer support. In one of my last videos, I showed this slide about trauma bonding. I mentioned peer support, and then I ended that particular class. So this is a continuation of first responder psychological support, and we're going to build off of this trauma bonding slide for this particular presentation. For first responders, trauma bonding is when you experience something traumatic and it becomes tied to the relationship you have with someone, something, or some time. So if you experience that trauma with someone, you may be in a trauma bond, or even just having camaraderie in a police or fire department or in the emergency department. You can have a trauma bond, just looking at each other like, I know, I understand before you even say anything. I feel it too. And that's what that's referencing or what it means. We could also trauma bond with something I've mentioned before, that it could be a vehicle, it could be a piece of your gear, a particular tool that you use at work. We bond with something when it's involved with our traumas, for an example. And then, of course, sometime we all know what an anniversary is. And, when we anticipate it, we feel it before, during, and after that time that it has happened. And that trauma bonding, we want to try to treat and move beyond resilience even, and get people some healing, some growth, post-traumatic growth. And one of the ways we can do that is through peer support. It's a great way to start the process, and also to make it safe, make it change, and make it a norm to have psychological support in the first responder careers. So really quick, I briefly, talk about peer support as a culture of listening, validating, relating, and referring, so that people can get the supportive help that's private or confidential that they need, that they want, or that they would prefer. Okay. So listening, validating, relating, and referring, those are all actions that take some skill. It also takes some knowing what you can and cannot do. So, in 2014, I was going to say 14 years ago, but about 11 years ago, when I taught my first peer support class, we didn't incorporate so much of the law as we have since then. So I love how we're evolving, we're connecting groups, we're using different professions to make sure that we have this as effective and as competent as possible. So my recommendation is to initiate your class with an attorney that's familiar with first responder peer support laws, if you're not already doing that, because you're going to have to go through what is existing, what's upcoming, and what may be needed with them. Now, as I do this presentation, if you are a professional, an attorney, a mental health professional, or a peer supporter already, I want to encourage you to comment in the comment section and just provide us your personal information if you would like, your professional personal information. If you are someone that can help with the law or with mental health in any way to the first responder world. So just want to put that out there, that it's always welcome. But again, going back to this part, attorneys will also help us understand that each state may be different and what we have to do differently because of that. But by and large, you want an attorney to help us or help you in the first responder world work together so that we are not against each other. So we want the admin and the department, and whether you have a city or a board with your district, to be all on the same page. We want your pension boards, workmen's comp, unions, your peer support team, and the psychological support professionals to work in harmony. Right now, that I don't think that we are that smooth. People don't always understand what's legal or ethical or what you are supposed to do and what you cannot do. And sometimes when I work with these different groups of people, I have to explain what my limitations are and what my role is. And we should become more familiar with that right at the beginning of a peer support class, I think, so we can minimize those discussions or arguments that take away from the peer support in the future. Now, in addition to an attorney, I'm going to say have a clinical team. And again, if you are already a clinician doing this work, please, if you're comfortable, put down your contact information or state what you're doing or what you're learning to create that discussion. Now, the clinical team, I always would say, needs a doctoral level psychologist to assist with assessments, with testing, and with witnessing. That's just a given in the legal world, but also so that we can work from the most knowledge down. Master's level social workers are also really important, not only for the mental health counseling and therapy that they offer, but because they do a lot of systems functioning. They're really great at that networking and pulling together the appropriate role and professional to get something done. We're also going to have other master's level mental health counselors, such as myself or licensed marriage and family therapists. There are clinical social workers, again, that do mental health and therapies as well. And if they're comfortable, not only can they provide the therapy, but teaching the interaction and communication of peer support is going to be really important. And we should always have mental health professionals paired with their first responder sponsors. And learning and teaching together makes a lot of sense to me. When I was in charge of teaching peer support back in Illinois, I always said that the mental health professional should have a first responder sponsor, where we learn a lot of information and get more connections and network built and functioning around us when we're working together like that. We also want first responder peer support leaders and instructors, whether that's your training officer or someone in administration even. Peer support is from probie to fire chief. We all need assistance, so we want to get them incorporated and participating as well. Now, of course, we also need a bulk of first responder peer supporters. We don't want to overwhelm one person for a department where they already know everyone. So the more people that we have trained in this culture, in this mentality, and evolve it, into law and practice and best practices, I think the better we're going to do. So first responder psychological support should always have that attorney, board member, pension board, e-board, union representative, everyone in all areas of focus at all levels participating, so that we're always on a very similar, if not same page. We're going to get there, right? So there's our clinical team. And what's our responsibility? Your core class should always be talking about ethical judgment and peer support, addressing dual roles, how we support up, down, or even laterally. We want to talk about legal consultation and when it's appropriate to do it together, or if you might need to do it separately for privacy reasons. We want you to learn about cultural competence. When you're helping another human being, there's a certain level of ethic required in cultural competence. So dealing with sex, gender orientation, race and ethnicity, creed, religion, spirituality, and all other identifiers, we want the department and even the rank dynamics to be considered when you're having a peer support interaction, and what is the best practice, the most ethical and legal way to provide that assistance to somebody. Also, it's a responsibility to learn how to answer or ask, questions. So we have open and closed-ended questions. We have questions to understand, questions to clarify. We have referring out as needed as a responsibility. And maybe the most important thing on this full page, next to ethical judgment is self-care, before, during, and after providing peer support. And all of these, I mean, this is quite a chunk of class right here. This is a whole day minimally, I think, in teaching about responsibility and making sure that we have a beginning knowledge when we become a peer supporter, what this all entails and what we might need to do to take care of ourselves. Now, we also have a lot of departments that have already used phone apps and technology. They're already established apps to organize their department into a pretty fantastic peer support network. I have talked also with people who have tried to or did create their own. It was quite costly, but by and large, this slide is also just here to tell you, like, in addition to your attorney and your mental health professionals and your first responder peer support team in all the different facets, like the board and the pensions and the city and the district, as I said, we need a tech guy, right? A long way to say we also need a tech guy. And we want to be able to have a contact list in there. To our local peer support team, additional peer support teams, clinicians that are familiar with working with first responders and the network that this really involves, and of course, even attorneys as it's relevant to mental health peer support work and labor law. So hopefully your fire or police department or even your hospital has a peer support benefit already established. My guess at this point in 2025, maybe not for the majority of us, but these are the things that we want to incorporate and make sure that we include and pay attention to. Now, one of the things back in the day was a mental resource folder. Now we can put it on a phone app, but if you don't have the phone app, it should be on a laminated sheet in the bathroom, on the shared drive of your department. It should be given to you in a brochure of some kind so that you have access to all the helpful information at orientation and maybe even go over it once a year. Like, by the way, here's our EAP company, and here are some employee counseling professionals that we have listed that you can reference or use or go to. There's a group called Safe Call Now. There's contact information for them and other national suicide hotlines. Find out who, if anyone, is offering critical incident stress management and debriefings in your area. What is the person's name? What is their phone number? Is that phone number good? Who are your peer supporters? What lists of clinicians are they using? What about your chaplains and other spiritual leaders? We want them not just to see this list raw without any information. You have to build this list, and under each bullet point, you put that name and phone number or contact method. We have Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. There are residential treatment centers for first responders that are popping up all over the place. Contact them, get their contact information, and ask, what is the best way for a first responder to get a hold of you if they want or need your services? And then, of course, something that people may not know about is EMDR providers. So this is eye movement desensitization reprocessing treatment, and it is a trauma-informed therapy. And EMDRIA.org is the Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing International Association of EMDR providers. And if you go to this website that I listed here, you can find who's trained in EMDR and can provide that trauma therapy for you. That's the trauma therapy with bilateral stimulation. And I will talk about that, of course, in another presentation. But also, in addition, having other counseling professionals with that list of clinicians that I mentioned before, super smart ideas for your mental health resource folder at your place of work. You can also text or call me about any questions regarding mental health services and information. That is my work cell phone number down there. And I'll answer within 24 hours. It is not 912 for first responders. I'm not going to respond within minutes or seconds, but I will see that text message come through and respond as soon as possible. So we have a resource folder, right? We have an idea of what we need to have this sort of team. But what about the lesson plan and the core curriculum and any continuing education? I think to get started, again, you have to have your contact methods. How are you going to get a hold of your peer if you're needing any help? Learning once you're helping one another, whether it's over the phone, through video with audio, or actually in person, learning how to attend to your peer. Another way to put that is orienting toward them. So when I, for example, am in my therapy office behind me, that's usually my chair over there. And directly across from me is the couch. We could probably scroll over that way. Yeah. And there's no barrier between me and that person. That is a part of me attending to them, right? We sit directly across from each other. I'm looking at them. I'm not on my phone. So making contact, attending to a human being is just first things first, you know? And also learning to hold space for someone, which is holding space without any control of the situation, holding space without any judgment of the situation. It's a really unconditional state where you don't make it about yourself, but you hold space for this other person so that they can think or feel or express what they need to in order to get the help that they need, want, and prefer. Learning how to build rapport is also extremely important. So I would put this in a peer support class as well. And making sure that you're managing transference and counter transference. Now, they teach this usually to mental health professionals because people will transfer you their energy, right? And whatever's going on with them. I like to give an example of like if I was sitting in a public place with someone chit-chatting and all of a sudden I took a look over there and I thought, wow, there is somebody staring at me. How did I know that? There was a transference. So as human beings, even though I was talking to my friend in this public place, I knew to look directly over here and see that person and whatever it was that they were transferring me. I didn't look up or behind me. We can actually feel the transference. So whenever you get that feeling from someone, you need to understand it as theirs and not your own. We feel it as countertransference, but again, it is not our own. So another example that I'll explain to people is that as a counselor that sees people throughout the day, I might have an hour with someone who's very depressed and I can feel that, whereas an anxious person feels a little different, bipolar, narcissistic, traumatized, suicidal. All of that transfers certain kind of energy to me. And my clinical gut over the years has become pretty trained to sort of understand and use that as clinical data, not only to help diagnose, but in order to help the person. So managing transference and countertransference, I think, is really important for peer support people to know and understand, because how their body feels when they're in the middle of a potential crisis or a triggering or activating situation and conversation is significant, and talking about it so you can manage it is important. So this comes, with a lot of nonverbal communication and learning nonverbal cues, not sitting with your arms crossed, not looking at someone like you're bored. If you're doing that, you shouldn't be in this work anyway. But nonverbal communications and body language also matter for peer support. And learning the basics of verbal communication is really important so that we're speaking clearly and not being nervous or uncertain about how to help. So also learning about assertiveness and boundaries is going to be helpful for your peer support team. Again, if you're already doing this, comment below so we know where to find you. Now, what about the warm fuzzy skills? The class should also teach, how to do active listening. What is empathy and compassion, the difference in how I can use it? Empathy, putting yourself in someone's shoes. Compassion, staying out of their shoes, but using your understanding and your validation and your own skills and talents to assist or help them help themselves. Kindness and helpfulness are the warm, fuzzy skills, relating and doing some self-disclosure and learning about the fine art of self-disclosure so that it's there to help the person, not to make it about you. It's a part of the understanding, validating, or relating process. And so using all of these warm, fuzzy skills together can help that peer support interaction, I think, be safer and more effective. And then there's a skill called persuasion and influence. And when it comes to peer support or mental health counseling, we're not trying to persuade someone to do anything that they don't want to do. We're giving them information, though, so that they can make an informed choice or choose to change something or even course correct or redo something. In that light, it should always involve integrity, safety, trust, and honesty. And learning about different case scenarios in your peer support class where this applies is going to be invaluable. So what are the other additional communication skills? There's reflection statements where we're saying something back. It's almost like paraphrasing, summarizing, and confirming that you are listening and correctly understood what the person was saying. A reflection of feelings is telling them back what you actually think they were feeling. So you might say, from the sounds of it, you sound really angry about this. Or you thought he was being unfair and it's making you very frustrated. So you're adding in the feelings, and you don't want to be worried about if you're wrong about that. Reflection of feelings is so that you can explore something, because maybe they'll say, no, I'm not mad. I'm not frustrated. I'm actually just really disappointed. And at this point in my life, I'm sad about it. Okay, well, now we're really involved in that reflection of feelings. So these different communication skills help us get to the bottom of things. You might also find yourself as a peer supporter needing to provide direct guidance, giving them suggestions, some idea sharing, goal setting, collaboration. You might also have to confront somebody, challenge them, or give them constructive feedback. And learning how to do this in different scenarios and with some wording practice is, again, going to be invaluable and helpful to a peer supporter. Learning about psychology as it's relevant to your career and as it's relevant to peer support will also be helpful. Going back and forth about career education, especially if you're going to cross peer support through different departments. For example, a police officer providing peer support to dispatch, making sure that you are a student of that person's job and just being willing to learn so that you can help them as helpfully as possible is what we're going for here. You might also find yourself doing some conflict resolution and problem solving. And I separate these when I teach. And I say that conflict resolution is with people and problem solving is with situations. And that uses different talents and skills, perspectives. And it helps us get to the bottom of things quicker so that we can move on, which is always my favorite thing. Like, can we just keep it moving and make really good sense legally and ethically? So all of that, is a ton of decision making and helping someone to feel very confident and in alignment with themselves and the peer support team as they make those decisions is going to give us, a better outlook and a better outcome with this type of project. Now, we also have to learn about crisis intervention. And mainly, you're going to have a different type of crisis intervention model. And you might like to explore some of those with a mental health professional. Choose the one that you think is going to be best for your department and use it. But mainly, it needs to include safety. Also, how are you going to do reporting, networking, and not working alone? We don't want a peer supporter to say, well, I did this all by myself. No, I did this with a team of people and with training behind me. And here are my reasons for what I did. We want to also make sure that crisis intervention includes de-escalating, especially on a physical level. When someone is activated in their sympathetic nervous system, we have to understand and learn the science of activating the parasympathetic nervous system and bringing that person down, and not by telling their brain, calm down, stop that. That does not work, but understanding how the body breathes through a posture to calm itself down and to self-soothe. Those even polyvagal theories, if you find them useful, can be used here. So crisis intervention, again, has a lot of direct guidance, sometimes commanding, supervising, delegating, participating. Now, commanding is not demanding, don't freak out. Commanding is used for safety and in order to give someone that direct guidance in an appropriate and effective, competent way. So discussing that, especially for crisis intervention, is going to be important. Again, we're looking at a ton of decision making and actually just assisting someone with a lot of explaining and guiding them through the process as it's needed. And even this image here, describes a couple of things that should be covered in your class, where it says privacy and equality, priority, urgency, encouraging and providing, being calm, and even being specific are all important parts of different crisis intervention models. So what are we trying to do here ultimately in peer support? We're trying to have a vision and some hope. We want to check in and check up so that when we flash forward, we don't feel a ton of anticipation anxiety. When we have a future template that we can flash forward to and feel good about, it gives us some vision and hope and pulls us out of that need for peer support and into more of our own agency, our independence, and our highest level of functioning, our potential. So this is ultimately how we help people do some self-care implementation. We help them start some good behaviors and stop some other things that might be not managing the situation, but sabotaging it. And teaching them that breath work and that alignment and taking those baby steps ultimately are going to get us to the finish line, and providing the cheerleading and coaching that it takes to get there. And hopefully, as a peer supporter, you've had the experience of what it takes to get there. I have definitely been in some situations as I was teaching where the walking wounded was treating the wounded. And that's okay. And by and large, like all of us helpers are going to have our own personal shit, as I say. But can we sometimes compartmentalize it, but also work on it, even heal it, grow it, evolve it to a point where we can say, I am now on the other side of this, and that actually be an honest and realistic belief that you have. Doing all of this is a type of leadership. And one of the next classes that I'm going to teach for this YouTube channel is on leadership. And it kind of goes through a lot of these different roles and practices or techniques to help us make sure that we are connecting and protecting people. Because again, we just want to heal and grow in this lifetime. We don't want to get triggered. We don't want to regress. We don't want to sabotage. We don't want to ruin our lives because we decided to be a first responder or we decided to be a public servant of some type. So always taking a breath in and relaxing, and hopefully knowing that all of these things can be incorporated into your peer support team and amount to a really beautiful, useful, functioning application on your phone, or the ability to connect to human beings in order to help each other so that they can live in a state of love, gratitude, kindness, compassion, and wisdom, and know that that is not some sissy way of living, but actually the preferred way of living. I mean, as you move on through life, we want to decrease the drama and increase the calm. Okay. So I hope that this little presentation about different ideas that peer support should include is helpful. If you have any questions, as always, shoot me an email or a text message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I want to remind any professionals that were listening in on this quick presentation that you are more than welcome to put down your contact information so that we can get your help if we need it. And then I'll remind you that I'm Sarah Gura, a master's level licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois and a licensed mental health counselor here in Florida. My practice is the self-care path, and I specialize in treating first responders. Go ahead and take that deep breath in. And when you exhale, I hope you can shake any additional tension out of the body, if only a little bit, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.